anti-Christian. This is the gesture of Zeus Sabazius of Thracia, Zeus Jupiter assigned to that irrelevant Galilean. So, let me commence the reading. Anti-Christian. Christians rarely ask themselves the question, what did the Christ, or Jesus, believe in? Remembering that Christ in Greek meant anointed in the context of being anointed as the Messiah, or King of Jews, a strictly Jewish concept. The whole conceptual framework is embedded in Judeo-Christian theological systems which are hard to escape from, if one does not have another perspective, for example, a noble heathen one. I broke free from the clutches of this religion at the age of 12, much like Emperor Julian, derisively called the apostate by the Christian Galileans, who, by the way, was killed by a zealot, a Christian traitor, murderer in the ranks of Roman soldiers. Henceforth, I devoted myself to the study of ancient literature, modern science, and the history of the religious ideas, including those of Abrahamic religions. From Roman and Talmudic sources, we know that Jesus was the son of a Jewish woman, Miriam, who was raped by a Roman archer, legionary named Panthera. He also had a brother named Thomas, since Judas in Aramaic, if you check the dictionaries, means nothing other than brother. For those unaware, Christians rarely have any idea about the roots of their religion, apart from the bubble of New Testament picture book stories and clergy sermons in the churches. So these facts may come as a surprise, especially that the popes themselves forbade good Catholics to research the beginnings of the Galilean sect. It is unlikely that a believer has studied the works of theologians who created the scaffolding for irrationalism of the religious movement, which was criticized for its absurdities already in the early centuries of their existence. Celsus and Porphyrius Malchus, for example, used the same arguments as today's atheists against the perverted illogic of Galilean Christians. Heathen faith, noble faith, was based on rational, mathematical, and geometrical reasoning on the topic of divinity. Mythology, as Julian Autocraton mentioned, was for thieving children. At a young age, Jesus joined one of the Gnostic Hebrew sects under the jurisdiction of the Second Temple of Idumea, Jerusalem. The sect was led by someone hailed as a Messiah by his followers, namely John the Baptist. Like in Monty Python, there were plenty of self-professed messiahs and so on in these days. So, John the Baptist was the master of this sect and also a teacher of some, including Isa, Jesus, the illiterate Jesus. These Essenes, as the sect was called, leaned towards Jewish Gnosticism, believing the destruction of the world is imminent and near, that Judea would be freed from Roman hands, and that the material world was ruled by an evil demiurge, thus explaining their personal Jewish suffering. The sect included many zealots, destroyers, and iconoclasts, which later manifested in Galilean, that is Christian, hatred for pagan statues, temples, philosophers, priestesses, ways of life, virtues, and Greco-Roman mythological or theological representations. They also believed that one must defeat the archons, namely the Essenes, John the Baptist and that Jew Jesus, as they found that they are the evil rulers of the planets in the heavens, as opposed to, for example, the zodiacal gods of Greece and Rome. So we can see that there is a different attitude towards the world in Greco-Roman beliefs, and in Hellenic Gnosis, and in Judeo-Christian, Judeo-Galilean sectarianship. So they believed, the sectarians of Jews, namely Galileans, that we have to master the secret names of those evil archons, so that the soul could ascend to the highest heavens, supposedly located just beyond those planets. So Gnostic texts from this period include various writings about Jesus, that he betrayed John the Baptist, that he was an amateur magician at best, or that a certain demoness, Ruhat Kusha, accused him of lying and producing persecutions upon the world that will follow from his lies. He was also called the master of the flies, namely that the flies gathered towards his lies. The Mandeans call him a self-proclaimed Messiah, an illiterate fisherman with no royal or divine claims. Jews believed that the Messiah had to have royal lineages, as Messiah was simply the title of a Jewish king liberating the Jews from Roman rule, often ending with the suffix "ia" if he worshipped Yahweh. One should remember that at their height, Judah and Israel were tiny kingdoms, 6 times smaller than today's territory of Israel, and the origin of the Jewish monotheism stemmed from 6th century before modern era. The first candidate for Jewish king was Bar Kokhba, who led the revolt against the Romans in 132-135 Common Era, or Anno Bastardi. Jewish apocalypticism was closely tied to rebellion against the Romans. So was baptism. Baptism was a symbol of rebellion against the Roman heathens. Sects appeared and disappeared, self-proclaimed messiahs too, and Jesus was one of them. When he was crucified, supposedly at the age of 33, one narrative claims that he was crucified on a cross shaped like a T. Another narration claims that he was stoned to death and destroyed. His corpse picked at by birds of prey. If crucified, he burned by the sun for 30 days on the cross, and eventually his cadaver was thrown to wild animals. Other narratives claim that he released his lies and demons into the world, which would spawn cruelty, persecutions, and wars, for which he would burn on a cross on the infernal mountain below in the bowels of earth. So in this version, he is burning in hell since 2000 years. Thus he was accursed, even by his own. Early Christian or Galilean zealots were a rabble of destroyers, iconoclasts, and murderers, akin to modern-day Al-Daesh, blowing up UNESCO archaeological sites and murdering people by beheading. Let's ask ourselves in today's world, if the guru of a sect created such an imitation today, would it be the same phenomenon as the Jewish sect turned into Galilean Christianity over the centuries? Just like with the Moonies or Scientologists, it has the same psychosocial engine, but in the eyes of religious people, monadism, universalism, and belief absolutism are applied, which do not follow or allow the verification of historical facts, namely it is a religion of darkness, blindness, and ignorance. In the 2nd century, the Roman Empire had about 49 million citizens, of which 1 to maximum 2 million were of Galilean sectarian Jewish faith, namely Christianity. Especially that the first Christians up to Constantine the Great wanted to be identified as the truest of the Jews. It is Constantine the Great who decided that Christian Jews are Christians and Jews are Jews, or in the narration that the Jews betrayed the Jew Jesus. So, a catch-all term for many Christian sects often later declared heresies. It was also during this creation of religion as a political tool by Constantine at the Council of Nicaea. He freed slaves on the condition they convert to new religion, sidelining the aristocracy, elite, the nobles, and Roman intelligentsia. Those who ruined the heights of antiquity with their stupidity, ignorance, and malice, which spread into human hearts, minds, and souls, elevated the image of a dead nobody, a zero, to the altars. They destroyed Neoplatonism and filtered what remains through Jewish Gnosticism. I hope that explains it. Thank you. Yours, the Evil Red Dragon.